Well, for those of you who have been here for a while, you know, or if you follow me on Instagram or anything like that, you know I like to fish, okay? Fishing is my hobby. It's the thing that I like to do for fun. And as a result of that, because I like fishing, my wife and I, from the moment we started dating, I have made it known to her that I love fishing and that eventually we're going to have to get a fishing boat because this is what I like to do. So just be prepared for that. Well, last year, that dream of mine finally came to pass, and we were able to buy a fishing boat. And so thanks, Katie, for letting me buy a fishing boat. I don't know if I've ever told you thank you enough for that, but yes. Anyway, we like to go fishing. It's one of the things that my wife and I and my son like to go out and do. We love to go fishing. And so during the summertime, we are always at the lake. And with that, I love going to the lake to fish and somewhat swim. I'll be real honest with you. I enjoy swimming in the lake when it's really hot outside because it's a nice little break from the heat. But can I be completely honest with you? I really don't like swimming in the lake. It's just not my thing. I think about all kinds of weird things like the other people that have been swimming in the lake who, are like, nobody's going to know if I pee in this water. I think about those things as I'm doing it, or who's swallowed the water and all the fish and snakes and all of that type of stuff. And so I already don't like swimming in the lake. And one thing happened this particular summer while we were swimming in the lake. I was swimming. I was enjoying myself. I was having a good time. And then something decided to touch my foot. Now, I already don't like swimming in the water at the lake. I really don't like it when I'm swimming in the lake and I can't see my feet and something touches my foot. Okay? I really don't like that. You know why I don't like that? Because I've watched Shark Week. And I've seen where bull sharks can travel from salt water in the ocean and all of a sudden travel up some freshwater river and they end up in some lake and then they attack some random person. So that's the first thought that goes through my mind when something touches my foot when I'm swimming in the lake. It's a bull shark and I'm about to die. All right? Don't judge me. I know you all have been there. Okay? Then, after that moment, I'm like, well, really, the chances of a bull shark swimming all the way from the ocean up the river to Oklahoma to eat me is probably very minimal. If it's going to be anything, it's probably like a really huge catfish that's like the size of a small car that's just going to swallow me whole or pull me down or something like that, right? So that's the other reason I don't like swimming in the lake. But I'm like, record catfish being bigger than me, being able to pull me down, that's really not realistic either. So I kind of calm down. And then the next thought that floods my mind is, it's probably like a dead body, like a leg or an arm, like that's just like floating around in the ocean or in the lake, and I've just like touched it, and now I'm gonna freak out. So I'm just being honest with y'all, okay? These are the thoughts that go through my mind. Welcome to my mind, okay? Here's the thing, though. Let me just ask you this. Is there anybody that can relate to what I'm going through in that moment? How many of y'all think there's a shark, there's a dead body, there's a big fish, you don't like something in the lake, touching your foot, that you don't know what it is, it could be a snake, all those types of things, right? All right. I am not the only one. So, with that being said, I wish I was prouder of this moment, but I'm not. When that happens, here's what I do, okay? I swim away. And I don't just casually swim away like, oh, something touched me. No. I'm like Michael Phelps, Olympic gold medalist, like splashing, get away from me. And here's the thing, again, this is the part that I wish I was more prouder of. I wish I would like go for my son and my wife and be like, here, I'm going to save you and protect you. No, I'm leaving them. Sorry. Like, something touched me, every man for themselves. Like, I know you're 4K, but you better get to shore. Like, every man for himself. That's what ends up happening in that moment. And I say all that to say this, that this is how we need to treat boundaries in our life. That boundaries need to be that thing in the water that as soon as it touches us, as soon as our foot hits it, it needs to be, no. And it needs to be, I'm getting away from this, and I'm getting away from this fast. And it needs to be, I don't care what you're going to do, it's every man for himself, and I got to get away from this. And I'm going to get away from this. That's how boundaries need to be in our life. Now look at me. Sadly, though, this is not what I see in many people's lives. Here's what I see in people's lives is that they don't want to leave that boundary. They want to be as close to the line as they possibly can without going over it. They want to stay around the people that have pulled them to that line without going over it. And here's what ends up happening. Is over the course of them being so close to that boundary and the people that they're surrounding themselves with being close to them in that moment, those people begin to put pressure on them in that boundary. And they begin to talk to them and put that thought in their minds that maybe you need to readjust that boundary line. And here's what some of those thoughts sound like. They sound like this. Everyone else is doing it, so you should too. Here's another one. It'll be fun and nobody will find out. Hey, I'm preaching here. Here's what they'll do. They'll try to justify that it's okay. They'll make comments like, well, if you were really my friend, you would fill in the blank. Or they'll take it another level and they'll say, if you really loved me, you would do this. And they try to put this pressure on your boundaries. And what ends up happening is as time goes by, let's say this stick represents your boundaries. Here's what happens. As you're close to it, because you're not swimming away from it, because you're not fleeing it in that moment fast, you're not getting away from it because you stand around it and stick around it, what ends up happening is over time, is each little thing that they say is that everybody else is doing it. It'll be fun. Nobody will find out. It puts pressure and more pressure on your boundary until eventually it ends up cracking. And that is where you end up doing something that you never thought that you would do. It's in that moment. And you know what ends up happening? The thing that is putting the pressure on that boundary is the people that you're around. It's the people that you're around. This is why, as a matter of fact, the people that you choose to surround yourself with is so, so important. The Bible says it this way in Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 20. Here's what Proverbs chapter 13 and verse 20 says. It says, walk with the wise and become wise. Associate with fools and get in trouble. So here's what this is saying. Again, saying the people that you choose to surround yourself with is extremely, extremely important. And what it's saying, if there's people that you're doing your life with that are wise, what they're going to do is they're going to pull you from your level up to their level. But if you're doing life with people that are doing foolish things, that are living a life in a standard that's below yours, what they're going to do is they're actually going to pull you down to their level. In other words, the people that you choose to surround yourself with are going to influence you. And you cannot influence others while you are being influenced. So what you've got to do and understand is that the people you surround yourself with is extremely important. Matter of fact, you want to know my whole message tonight in one sentence? It's this right here, is that you need the right people in your life. You need the right people in your life. Now, here's the question, though. Everybody look here. The right people for you may not be the right people for somebody else. What you might need in your life right now is different than what somebody else might need in theirs. So here's where this challenges me tonight is I wish I could sit up here and tell you all the boundaries that you're going to need in your life to help you to make sure that the people are right in your life. But the truth of the matter is, I can't do that. So what I want to do in just the next few minutes is I want to give you 3 just real simple, basic boundaries that I think you should look for in every friendship or every relationship that you're going to have in your life. And as I'm talking about these 3, I want you just to begin to evaluate it, but I also want you to realize is that you might need to take this boundary and modify it a little bit to fit your personal life and your personal needs right now. You might need to take this boundary and say, you know what, those 3 are good, but I need to add a few more, and that's A-okay as well. But I want to give you just some basic boundaries to help you, okay? So the first thing I want you to write down in your notes about boundary number 1 that you need to look for in the people that you're choosing to surround yourself with and have them to speak into your life and be there to encourage you is this. Boundary number 1 is, are they a good example? Are they a good example? Are they a good example? And when I say that, right now, I promise you, there are people that are coming to your mind right now, and there are maybe some friends that you have, where maybe you've even got some red flags that are coming up as we're talking about being a good example, and you're like, that person right there, yeah, they do this, they're not a good example in this area. Don't ignore the red flags that are coming up in your spirit right now. Do not ignore those. Are they a good example? You say, well, Pastor Mike, how do I know if somebody is a good example? I am so glad that y'all asked that. If you would, go to Matthew chapter 7. Matthew chapter 7. We're going to look at a few verses here. Matthew chapter 7, starting in verse 15, verses 15 through 20. Look at what this says. Matthew chapter 7, verse 15 through 20. It says, beware of false prophets who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. We're talking about our friendships. Let's read it like this. Beware of false friends who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. So let's read it that way. Beware of false friends who come disguised as harmless sheep, but are really vicious wolves. You can identify them being these false friends, by their fruit. That is, by the way they what? Act. For those of you who are taking notes, you should underline that in your Bible. You can identify them by the way they act. Let's get down to it. Let's make it even more plain on our level. It says, can you pick grapes from a thorn bush or figs from thistles? You can't do that. Grapes and figs and thorn bushes do not cohabitate. They don't all grow on the same plant. Doesn't work that way. Then it goes on to say this in verse 17, a good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown into the fire. I messed that all up. A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. A good tree can't produce bad fruit, and a bad tree can't produce good fruit. So every tree that does not produce good fruit is chopped down and thrown to the fire. What is this telling us? That basic science and human life and trees and planting and farming and all that stuff is that if you have a good plant, it's going to produce good fruit. A bad plant is going to produce bad fruit. Okay? Keep that in mind and look at verse 20. This is the key verse that I want you to look at. Yes, just as you can identify a tree by its fruit, whether it's a good tree or a bad tree, underline it, so you can identify people by their actions. This whole passage right here is taking time for you to look at people that you're surrounding your life with, and it's telling us this, that when you look at people, you can tell who they really are, and you can identify them by their actions. So here's what I want you to do right now. Again, the example that you might need in your life right now might be different than the example that somebody else might need. Might be completely different. but are they a good example? When you look at their actions, what do their actions say about them? I'll tell you something. Katie and I, the very first time that we had a conversation, I remember thinking like, hey, this girl's cute. The next conversation we had, we got into an argument over a basketball game because we're both super competitive, okay? And I remember thinking when I saw her, like, I would love to date her. But to be real transparent and real honest with you, I was not in a place where I could be a good boyfriend and a potential husband for her. And I don't believe in dating somebody just to date somebody. And because I wasn't husband material at that point in time, I wasn't going to put somebody and get in a relationship with somebody. Let that be a note to all of you that if you're not in a position, if you're not going to be a good husband or a good wife, don't worry about dating right now. Worry about fixing yourself and working on yourself and getting your own issues. But that's a whole nother message and a whole nother message for a different time. But I will say this. Over the course of the next 2.5, 3 years that it took me of working on myself, I watched her from a distance, and not like a creepy stalkery one. Like, I would watch her as she worshiped God. I would take peeks at her Bible, and I would see that her Bible was all highlighted, and I would see how she would interact and treat people, and just how gentle and kind and sweet she was with other people. And as I stepped back and as I looked at her life, I looked at the fruit that she had in her life, and it was like, she is a gentle person. She is a kind person. She is not selfish. She is going to be supportive. She loves God. She loves Jesus. And I could identify her, and I got to know her without us ever even going on a date, simply because I looked at her actions first. And one of the things that all of you need to do is begin to look at the people in your lives, look at their actions, and begin to ask yourself, what are they communicating? Look at how they treat other people. The moment somebody does them wrong, how do they respond to it? Do they pay attention to the important stuff? During worship, do they just sit on their phone, or do they actually engage with what's going on? During the message, are they taking notes, or are they talking to their friend? How about this one? Do their actions match who they say they are? It's amazing how many people will say, oh, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. But when it comes time for their actions commute something completely different. Can I tell you something? I've had people come up to me, and grown adult, Pastor Mike, if you ever need something, I'm going to be there for you, man. I got your back. Call them when I need something. I can't do that now. Oh, I'm not going to follow through with that. Can I tell y'all something? The leaders that are in this room, the adult leaders, they're not those people. They're people of their words. Their actions back up who they are, who they say they are. It's not an easy thing to become a student leader here on a Wednesday night. I take that seriously as your pastor, and I just want to let you know something, that the adult leaders that are in this room, they're good examples to you. And if you need a good example, there's somebody that we want to encourage you to begin to talk to and do life with. Because I know some of y'all don't have that. And that's why they're here. When they're asking you to stop talking during the message and pay attention, you know why they're doing that? Because they see how valuable this is. They're trying to model that for you. What time is it? I got to keep going. Yeah, I got to go. All right. Y'all ready for the next one? How about this one? Y'all are going to love this one. Boundary number 2. Are they a truth teller? Are they a truth teller? This is about to get good. I'm just telling y'all. Y'all better put the seatbelt on, buckle in, get ready. Are they a truth teller? Look at what Proverbs chapter 12 verse 22 says, okay? Proverbs chapter 12 verse 22 says, "The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights He delights in those who tell the truth. Can I just tell you all something? God delights when people are honest and tell